Continue working on your scene from the last movie, or use the provided scene named cp11trees.max. The next step is to add a few trees to complement the scene. Make sure Civil View is running and open the Object Placement Style Editor. Choose the Private Resource Kit. Add a new element and go to the Trees and Plants tab. Civil View has a large library of cardboard trees, which are essentially flat rectangular surfaces mapped with image of trees. It's a technique much used in games to keep poly count to a minimum. Therefore, the library in question is in fact a library of tree images that you can use to create variety. Since it is part of the Object Placement tool, you can use the same workflow you used with other objects such as lampposts and signs. However, and as you have seen before, object placement in Civil View mostly relies on splines to pinpoint placement. In the case of plants and trees, this may not be the best solution to plant vegetation. Typically, it would be easier to plant trees with brush strokes to ensure you place them exactly where you need them. For that, you'll use 3ds Max's Object Paint feature. So in fact, you need Civil View to access the library of trees, but you need Object Paint for the placement process. As it is a two-step technique, you will learn in this movie how to extract Civil View objects to use with regular 3ds Max workflows. First, go to the top view and create a small line near the 000 origin. Zoom in and orbit around. Assign this shape as a reference in the Object Placement Style Editor dialog. Make sure the tree library is displayed to show large icons. You need to select a few trees that you can extract to use with Object Paint. Start with the Great Morinda type, make sure it is set to single object, and apply it. It gets added to the beginning of the path. Use the F4 toggle to see the extent of the cardboard surfaces. Add a new element and choose the Polo Verde tree. Again, make sure it is set to single object, but offset its start station a bit and apply it. Next, add a Coulter pine tree from the conifer evergreen group. Add another element, and this time go to the broadleaf deciduous section. Here, and for some reason, I have some difficulty selecting tree types. I'm not sure if this is a problem with the plugin or with my system, but I noticed that I can bypass the issues using the small icon display mode. Use the European beech type and place it on the spline. Keep on going and add a few more trees to the mix. Place 6 additional trees in the form of a flame tree, an Italian maple, a London plane, an Ohio buckeye, a red oak, and a sassafras. Do not worry of the discrepancy in tree sizes. You'll normalize that in a second. When you're done, exit the Object Placement dialog. You don't need to save the style, as your ultimate goal is to extract these trees to later use as paint objects. For the time being, they are still bound to the spline, and you couldn't move them even if you tried. Make sure the Civil View Explorer is displayed and select any of the trees. You can readjust parameters such as width and height to bring all the trees to roughly the same size. You can randomize the scale later as you scatter the object across the terrain. Continue normalizing tree sizes until they are more or less the same. Also note that the number of plane counts defaults to 2, but you can have more if you so choose. Leave it at 2 for this tutorial. Next, you need to extract them as separate objects so they are not bound by the reference spline anymore. This can be done in the tracking panel by simply clicking the X button next to the selected parent shape. This removes the path constraint and assigns an XYZ position controller to the tree, which means you can now move it around. Repeat for the other 9 trees you created. Select one of the trees and take a look at the modifier stack. It is listed as a VSP tree object. You need to convert it to an editable poly to use it with Object Paint. In fact, select all trees and convert them to editable polys. They are now listed as such in the Modify panel, which in turn means you cannot edit them in Civil View Explorer anymore. By now, you can delete the spline you used to place the trees. You don't need it anymore. It would be a good idea to rename the trees so that they are easier to select at a later time. Go to Tools, Rename Objects. Make sure you are set in Selected mode and select all 10 trees. Set the base name to tree_0 and enable numbering with a base number starting at 1. Click the Rename button. The trees have now been renamed Tree 001 to Tree 010. Close the dialog window. The trees are now independent and ready to be used as paint objects. This will be your task in the next movie.